Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hardcore Metal Detecting Radio Show. I'm Derek Askler, and Craig Talley's on the line. They'll be hosting the show tonight. I'm going to have pretty much open lines tonight. Just going to talk about whatever metal detecting or whatever your little heart's desire out there. You can call in at 352-504-4170. Join in on the conversation or bring up a new topic. You can also get us if you're outside the U.S. Or whatever. Don't by your computer. You can just call us on Skype. Derek.asklar1. It's on the chat right here. I put it on there twice because I messed it up the first time, Craig, but it seems like it's way it's been going. Hopefully the sound is a little bit better. I've been working with this crazy thing for God, I don't know, 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. Hopefully it's coming through a little bit better. It's mostly my ignorance about as far as soundboards and stuff and what I can get to kind of hook up to this thing to make it sound better, or just for the microphone, short of buying another microphone. But yeah, I'm just kind of going through the motions with that, and ended up using Boom too. I tried a lot of these different apps, Craig, and I don't know, it just it won't link up right with the Mac. I could have used Pauline's PC, whatever, Alien, but trying to do it on this, and it does pretty good. It just, I think I'm going to end up buying a new microphone if this doesn't work. Hopefully you can hear me good. So I guess Earl says it's awesome sound. I appreciate it, brother. I just I'm kind of using that Boom too, in a way that it's not normally, I guess, used. I'm kind of classic about taking some of these programs and making them work the way I want them to, but it's mostly for music, and I didn't know whether the sound was coming through on the earbuds, on my headphones, whatever, versus going through the Spreaker app so that you guys can hear it better, and maybe there's not so much background noise. It's just mostly ambient sound. That's why I was hoping to use a different platform. I think it's OS. I can't remember the name of it now, and it does work. It just won't intermingle whatever work with Spreaker. Or I don't know how to do it. That's probably the case, Craig. But anyway, brother, what have you been up to? You do anything interesting? Yeah, Craig? Buddy, lost Craig. Oh, well. I still show you on here. Not sure exactly what's going on. Maybe it's his headset. Yeah, I'm going to hang up on you, Craig, and you can call me back. All right. There you go. Craig will call back in a minute. Not sure. Whoa. Dang, blast my eardrums out. You there, Craig?
Yep.
All right.
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine now, brother. I don't know what was going on there. It wasn't my side, but I think Skype had a hiccup.
Yeah, I could hear you fine, but you couldn't hear me.
Yeah,
But,
I have selective hearing, but not that bad. No,
I got all these fans on because my air conditioner went out, and there's one of the parts is it's actually the blower, and it still costs me $1,000. But
holy cow, dude! Really? I didn't think it would cost near that much for the blower on that thing, because me and Craig had talked about this Friday or whatever it was.
Replacing the whole thing, and $7,000-8,000.
Dude, that's crazy.
So I called my brother, and he said, just the parts are like, the main unit's fine, but it's 20 years old, and some of the parts are 20 years old, and the other one is the furnace is 2010. The other one was 1998 or 99. But anyway, one of the parts was bent, and they had to order it or something. But they're coming Saturday and supposedly reassembling that. But they're talking about, EPA's got a thing next year. You can't use the
Freon stuff.
Freon or whatever it's in it now. You got to use something else.
Dude, I would really highly consider. I'll look them up tonight, and heck, if your brother has to make a trip down here to Florida to buy one, because I know that they aren't no dang $7,000. I'm like, good God, that's crazy.
I mean, he actually, he's a engineer scientist, and,
right?
since he's retired, well, actually before this, he does everything. Nothing, and it was the same way when I lived at my house, in Alexandria when I was a kid. My dad and him used to argue. They were both scientists. Everything was done by them. Right. They didn't have anybody do anything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was like a competition between them. And then my brother started, pulling ahead when he was like 15 or 16,
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny, they would argue over, all kinds of stuff. My brother he would focus right on what was supposed to be fixed at that time, and my dad would be all over the place. Well, what about this and what about that? And and he goes, no, don't worry about that yet. And then
yeah.
But
oh no, I thought it was crazy about that price of that unit.
But
because,
anyway, he has like a license for
contractor.
This up there in New Jersey and all kinds of other stuff too. And he's renovating that 1773 house he just bought. And but anyway, he said when the other unit breaks, then he'll come down. And he said the Freon's not going away. It's going to be around for a long time. I mean, the people have already stocked up on it and stuff. And
I get that. I just thought it was crazy the amount for a new unit, because I know what I just paid. I have a brand new unit here that's a 3-ton or something like that. I can't remember how they judge them, but I mean it's a big unit, and I think it was installed and everything was $3,500, and this thing is all the bells and whistles on it, for fuel, whatever, electric usage and all that kind of stuff. I just couldn't believe that they were charging that much up in Virginia for the unit itself. You need to come down to Florida and take a week vacation and then bring an air conditioner back with you. They're not that hard to put in, but yeah, I couldn't believe it's $1,000 for a blower, for goodness sake. That I know Earl said he just paid $400.
I looked up this company and I should have, I didn't know, that I was getting into this much money, and
oh, no biggie. I just thought you were getting ripped off a little bit right there, right? Of course, down in Florida, we use a lot of air conditioners down here, so we'd probably get them a little bit cheaper. But yeah, I didn't know if it was they were jacking the prices up pretty high up there. Of course, everything's higher up there, right? So it's Virginia.
Not much here. If you go to Alexandria, down in regular Northern Virginia, I'm not in that area.
All right.
I'm about probably 40 miles out of it, but.
Yeah, you don't want no redneck coming up there and smacking people for you. I'll come up there and smack them and get them back, thinking back right again.
It was a funny thing this morning. Well, actually, it was at lunchtime. I was getting ready to go to lunch, and I kind of looked out the window, and I saw like 5 black, like Suburbans out there, and I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
So I come outside, and there's about, 15 guys all in these black uniforms, and I look, and they start going, "Hey, sir, how you doing?" So I looked, and they were Border Patrol, and so I said, "Hey, how you guys doing?" And thanks for your service, man. And they said, "Oh yeah, thanks a lot, man." So they were going into the pub to eat lunch, and so I went down to the barbecue place I eat at, and I mentioned to the owner, I saw these guys, and he said, "Oh man," he goes, "they come down here a lot and eat, and they operate a training base up here, and they got dogs and stuff."
Oh, okay.
And he said they actually come down to the battlefield, and they're allowed to train the dogs out in these big fields, because these fields are like gigantic, probably thousands of acres, and it's all battlefield, it's all protected. And but they let the guys train their dogs and stuff out there. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I came across some interesting information just by doing a search for someone. They were trying to get a job they wanted to get a job at the National Cemetery, just a regular, whatever kind of job they had there. And I was trying to find an online application form through Human Resources, and I looked it up on the Human Resource Department of the cemetery down here, and and it gave a history. They had this thing called history of I guess this part of Florida, and it was telling me, or saying something to the effect of, in the 1840s, if you owned a gun and had ammunition, you could get, I think it was 125 acres if you would farm it and stay on it for 5 years. And then in the next paragraph, it went into during the Civil War, over in Homosassa. It's about, I don't know, half an hour from here, that they would make sugar, whatever, sugar cane, whatever, they use that, I guess, and then sugar and everything, and that they would supply the Confederacy. You don't see very much information down here, at least what I've seen on websites and stuff that would even mention the Confederacy or anything like that, anything with the Civil War. But I thought it was pretty neat going to something totally, off the wall, and then finding historical facts in there about, the area you live in, and how they homesteaded this area and stuff. Because 1836 was the massacre down here at Dade Battlefield, and with the Seminole Indians and everything. So it was shortly after that they started. I think it was along the Withlacoochee River, or up to the Withlacoochee State Forest, which is on the other side of the Withlacoochee River. They were starting to give away land, not give it away, but you had to comply. But the number one thing is you had to have a gun and ammunition. I said, heck, everybody had owned property down here now. We all have guns and ammunition. But yeah, it's just weird. You find the history of some of these, businesses or whatever else. If they have a page like that, it might surprise you. Depending on what part of the country you live in and everything, you might find out stuff you didn't even know. Because I really didn't know that whole deal about how the property was kind of granted or what have you. I mean, in Oklahoma, and I know out west, they had the what everybody could get if you could make it out to the flags, you had 100 acres or something like that to farm, or 1,000 acres, whatever it was, back in pretty far back. But they also did it down here in Florida. I thought that was kind of neat. But to get these,
that was how
groups.
They could populate an area and
right,
give people incentive to move in.
Exactly. Start farming and stuff.
Land was that was a big deal back then. That was if you had land, you could actually grow stuff and make a living at least and feed your family.
What gets me is we were talking about it. All these places I hunt and everything. These guys have these big tracts of land still. I mean, big by today's standards. 300, 400, 500 acres, which is a lot. I think, anyways. I mean, it's more than I can fathom owning. But all the taxes and you can get greenbelt stamps for agriculture and stuff. But I mean, how do they? If you didn't have that, how in the world would you ever afford the taxes on these places? I mean, and the funny thing is too, Craig, every year they charge them. They raise or usually raise up a little bit, but how many years have you owned a property for over 100 years? How much money have you paid in taxes for the property that was paid off to begin with? You know what I mean? It'd be different if you didn't own it outright.
There's two things you can't get around, and that's death and taxes.
Taxes, yeah, I know. It floors me, the amount of money. They complain about the roads sometimes. They say, hell, we're paying road taxes every which way but Sunday, and they never have enough money. Oh, gosh.
Nah, it's like I've noticed that there's a lot more money coming into the government right now, and they're spending more. So
that's always the case.
In debt again, so they're going, oh my God, look at all this money coming in, we got to spend it. It's like, God.
I want to give myself a raise. That's what I want to do, because I heard somebody just gave themselves a raise again. And my mom was telling me about that. I said, yeah, Mom, wouldn't it be nice just to give yourself a raise whenever you wanted to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess they were talking about, in Congress or something, they wanted to raise up, so their salary was like $189,000 a year instead of what it was before. It was like $4,500 raise or something, but
they're getting paid too much as it is.
I think they ought to work for free, actually.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be, everybody's supposed to be working for us, and most of the people in there are already rich,
Right.
Usually you're rich before you, even run.
No kidding. You put these millions of dollars to run for office, for I don't know. That don't even get me started on that whole racket. That really ticks me off. You know, you could have a really good person, but if he hasn't got enough money, he can't run. You know, because he can't afford to run. It's just
Yeah.
an office that, you know, he's supposed to be there for the people. You know, but anyway, yeah, that's a whole nother rigmarole. You know, Pauline handed me a newspaper and a magazine article. I don't know. It's not Fingerhut, but it was something like that. You know, where these little catalogs and everything. And I actually saw a bounty hunter in there for $24, Craig. You know, the little bounty hunters that I started out with. And then they had that. I don't think it is the actual Radio Shack one, but it looks just that funny shaped metal detector they had for years. And that one's $12. So I just, you know, you can get a good metal detector for $12.99. But it'll find you something, but it won't be real deep. But it'll get you started.
Yeah.
But she saw that.
You'll get a beat. You'll look down and you'll see it.
That's right, just about. Hey, but back then that was probably the stuff, you know. Yeah, you start somewhere. I started out with one of those things. It didn't take me long to figure out I wanted one that was better. But I mean, you know, that's always said. You know, you get on the internet and you know, like eBay or Amazon or something like that. There's a lot of these forums too have, you know, buy, sell, trade things on their forums. I think we did too. You know, a lot of times you can pick up if you've always wanted to, I don't know, wanted to own an E-Track, wanted to try an E-Track. Well, hell, I mean, if you were to buy one now, I mean, I think they're still $1,800 or something like that. Maybe you could pick up a used one for $1,000, or you know, whatever, a White's brand, whatever you're looking for to try. To buy a used one, you know, that way you get an idea. If you like it, then go out and buy a brand new one, then, you know, or whatever, or just keep that one. You know, they're pretty durable. Metal detector. I mean, unless you have a coil problem with them or something, but most of these guys that sell them on there, I mean, unless you're buying from, I don't know, if they're a relic hunter or something, they're pretty good.
I ran some machines, you know, 5-10 years and never had any coil problems. The only one I did was the Nautilus, and you'd have to have it retuned, but
right,
you know, it wasn't that big a deal, except sending it back to him. But
right.
I think most companies, they just send you a new coil if it's under warranty.
That's what White's did with me. I mean, White's, you know, if you buy a used White's machine, I'm not sure if they still do it, but they were always great with customer service. Never had a problem. Call them up, tell them what's going on. They said ship it to them, and they'll let me know what it'll be. And I don't think they ever charged me a dime. Matter of fact, they gave me free stuff. And this is long before I wasn't doing radio shows, nothing like that. You know, a lower detecting shaft or a new something, whatever. They were coil covers, something like that. And, you know, it made it kind of worthwhile. And they always had my machine back to me. I think the longest I waited was 8 days. Usually by the time they got it, boom, they were on it and sending it back or what have you. And I think, you know, Mine Lab, I think it does that too. I think they have service centers around. I don't own a Mine Lab, but never really had to use them for that part of it. You know, as far as getting one repaired.
I had to send one Explorer back. You know, my friend gave me one that was broken, and I had to get it the coil retuned.
Yeah.
I think it actually had a bad coil is what the problem was, or the coil went bad and they fixed it. But they were out on the West Coast in the California somewhere. I can't remember. It's so long ago. But it's, you know, back in the early 2000s when I switched over to that. I had the Explorer XS, but it was expensive to get it, you know, get it fixed. But
they usually are. I mean,
that was one of the more expensive machines, you know, at the time too. I ended up buying a used. I bought a used one for $500 that had been used for a couple of years, and it, you know, I ended up selling it, and it was fine. You know, it still ran, and the guy ran it for another 3 or 4 years. I guess he still has it.
Yeah, they're pretty durable. I mean, most detectors. I mean, even, you know, but they're expensive to work on. I mean, they are. I mean, I should have been charging a heck of a lot more to work on these machines, and there's a lot more to these, you know, as far as getting in them and everything else. And the parts. I mean, I got one that a guy's working. I blew a circuit in one. I don't know whether I did it or the machine was just there's something wrong with it, but just getting the well, I'm going to call it a diode because I don't know what the heck it's called other than that. But it something went wrong with it. And he had to order one, and it took him 3 months to find it. And, because this thing's put together in Bulgaria, and these little circuits, these little .003 amp or something diodes or something, and it took him forever to find it, and then he has to put it in. I can solder pretty good, but I told him, dude, you've been doing this all your life. I'm not going to mess with that. Those damn solders are so small on there. I mean, I got monkey hands. What would I be doing, So he's trying to put it, get it, that one little bitty circuit. For some reason, it decided to go. But it didn't throw the safeties. I'm thinking it was just a bad one. It'd be the first one we've had, but in that whole batch. But yeah, it costs money to work on them. I mean, I'd rather replace something than like if a coil went bad, I'd just soon give them another coil, or just charge them a minimal amount for a coil, tune it to the machine, and send it back. Because working on a coil, I'm just not good at. I mean, I can work on it, but it's time consuming, and it's easier just to send them another one, and tune it to the machine and everything. I do have, so I need to dig this, see what else I got out there. Some of you guys may want some of those 7x9 coils or something. I'm not sure how many more I got left, but I think I got a couple of 15-inch coils too, Craig, if you want one. So
I got two 15-inch and two 7x9s, one each for V5 and V6.
Yeah. I got all kinds of stuff back there.
I don't use the 7x9 that much, but I did use it early on up against the fence because I could get even closer with that smaller coil.
Right.
But I did good with that little coil in the yard up at Alexandria. It seemed to be a little bit more shielded to the EMI too.
Yeah, it has an extra thick coax or whatever, shielded coax on there. It's like double thick or something. I don't know. It's a lot. It's just thicker than the other one is. That thing, it's a wicked little coil. I mean, I don't use mine much either, but if I get into, I usually use that 11-inch coil is my go-to. I mean, because it can pick up the small stuff too. And then when I get done with that one, then I'll take the little one in there and really kind of saw away at it, see what I can find. What it seems like goes on. But but yeah, I mean, working on any of these machines, unless if you have I don't even know what it would cost to get a CTX fixed or I don't know, Craig. I mean, I don't know what they got in them. Never looked inside there in the control box.
It depends on if it's under warranty or not.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like our control box is totally packed. I mean, it's like, between the board, the knobs, the battery, and I mean, there's not a hell of a lot of room in there. That's why you got to be careful. I always tell the guys, you can buy the batteries online and put the battery in yourself. Just be very, very careful how you're putting it together. It's not like you can't just force this thing together. You got to make sure the wires are out of the way, and you're not. Mostly, it's the connectors. The little junctions. Hook the battery up and stuff. Whether that lays on the board, you got to be very careful not to bend a diode or something into something else. That's what happened with Craig's. I got a little too fast with, sent it up to Craig. He goes, "This thing's not working." And I said, "You got to be kidding me. I just put a brand new battery," and he sent it back down to me, and that's what it was. I spent 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks, wasn't it, Craig? I was ready to pull my hair out. Couldn't figure out why it was working, and it just turned out to be bumped one of those little wires over.
It would give a threshold, but that was it. You know, and it would, like, I could take something big and go over the coil, and it would make just a little bitty rise in the threshold, but that was it. It was weird.
When I put the box together,
the battery was fine. It was.
Oh yeah, I literally took this
little red or anything.
Took this toothpick and I didn't want to use metal. I took a little toothpick, put it down there, moved that little bitty wire over, 1/16 of an inch, and voila, it was fixed again. So it was just me being. I closed it up too fast and didn't pay attention, and it's just easy to do. But that's probably the most technical thing that. Just making sure, because it's two halves and holds the the plates for the front and back plate and everything. And the only other thing I can tell you is don't ever mess with the dang charger, or not the charger, the coil, where the coil connects inside there when it goes to the control board. That is tedious as heck. They get little bitty wires, and if you don't have them just right and they're not the right, just perfect length, it does affect the way that the coil picks up. As way those coils are tuned really tight. Most of the coils that I think he's saying like 98.5 or 99% tuned to the machine itself. I mean, there's not a
there's
lot
not
of
too many. That was one thing, but the Nautilus, you could actually tune the coil yourself.
Right. Exactly.
But that almost be a cool feature, to have. But I don't know if you could do it in every, you might have to have a special type of, configuration on the coil or something. I don't know.
I mean, the only thing I ever thought about was that, that coil's, I've never really, I think one or two in the few years that we were selling them, that a coil went out of null or whatever you want to call it. Most of the time it was damage to the coax cable, whatever the coil cable, damage to that. I've never had, I think one coil failed and I just replaced it, and I never do, I don't know what happened to it, but that's not bad considering how many machines were made. That was one thing I have to say, the quality control part of it, they were really good about that. They tested every single machine that they put together, went to a test, test lot and everything else, and they did if they couldn't do those tests, it went back to the company or whatever, the warehouse, and they went through it again, made sure everything was right. So that, the quality control was really good. So that saves a lot, because a lot of stuff is mass produced. As you know, Craig, they run them on an assembly line. They do a basic test on them, the continuity or whatever you want to call it, and but that's about as far as it gets. A lot of them. I mean, I don't know about these newer ones, and they may take the extra time to tune them. It may be the reason why they're so good. I'm sure Deus does something like that, because really, the whole machine is in that coil. I mean, you have a control, whatever you want to call it, module, but the detector itself, there's no wires or nothing like that. It's all Bluetooth or whatever, Craig. So essentially your metal detector is in the coil, which is kind of neat when you think about it.
With the battery, too.
Yeah, with the battery, too, yeah.
But in the headphones, you can actually, take the box and leave it at home and run the machine on just the headphones. You can actually program it through the headphones manually. Crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. Sorry about that. I was coughing.
That's all. People are starting. Some of the guys in the USA, the XP Deus USA team.
Yeah.
I saw Tim Glick with a ORX, Deus. They got this new one.
Yeah.
And it's a lot cheaper. I think it's around $650, $700, something like that. But looks like a pretty good machine. I talked to Tim a while back, and he was waiting to get it, and he said he'd heard good things about it, but he said, I don't know until I try it out.
No,
but,
Craig, is that,
I saw a picture of him using it with the new high-frequency white coils. I saw a picture of him in the Facebook, but I think he just started using it today or yesterday or the day before or something.
Now, I've seen advertised, the Deus, and I'm not, I don't know a lot about the Deus. I've swung one once or twice maybe, but is it what you're paying for? Is it a package deal? Some of the packages are like a lot more than others. The machine itself, what it does, the frequencies and all that are the same, right? It's just what you're getting with it is what you're paying extra for. Like different headphones and stuff. Am I right about that, or am I totally off base?
No, originally, it was the behind the ear wireless headphones and the module and the stem and and the coil.
Right.
And that was it. And there was only a 9-inch coil, and I think there was 11 by 13-inch coil. It was really heavy.
Right.
And it only gave me the trouble is like the 11-inch and the bigger and that 13 by 11 inch, they only give you about an inch deeper on a target, and
Right.
I was like, whoa, that's not good. I'm going to pay a whole bunch more money for just an inch. It doesn't seem like it's worth it to me, but I don't know. Maybe some of the newer programs have improved that. But they have gone through. When I started, they were on 2.0, and then they went to 3.0, and they had problems, and they went to 3.1. I was waiting because a lot of times, you have problems when there's a glitch when you first release it, and then they got to update it. Well, they had to update it to 3.2 before it finally worked right.
Right.
And but they're up to like 6 or 7 now. I think six something. But they've actually incorporated, different coils now. They got different high frequency coils and some other kind of coil.
That's nice, though. They're very active in getting this stuff, better and better stuff for the detector itself, or making it better. That's a good thing.
Well, from what I see, them and MindLab are the two, they're going head to head against each other. They're the two most popular machines on the market, and MindLab had it years ago, and then they didn't do a very good job for a while. Customer service wasn't that good.
Right.
And they were pretty expensive, and they kind of moved out of Ireland. And I won't get into all the other stuff about it, but a lot of the Australians weren't happy that it was being outsourced. The making of the machines and stuff like that. And also they patent everything, and they've actually patented other people's products, features on other people's products.
Right.
I'll give you an example. They patented the name. What was it? It was one of the whites. The name of one of their top line machines. Vision. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
And they patented that
Spectra.
name, and and made them take the name off the machine after it came out. I mean, that's pretty big. I think it's dirty pool myself, but that's the kind of company they are. They're after. They got all these patents, and they use them against you. And
it's a rough business. We've talked about that to the last show.
Mm-hmm.
How.
But anyway, they lost
lost
their edge, and like I know all these British guys and people from Germany and France and stuff, and they were talking about they all used MindLab. They E-Track was practically the top of the line machine, and some of the guys were using Xteras, I think. But E-Track was like, God, that when I first started watching a lot of the videos, E-Track was like, we called it the silver slut. You could go around and pick silver out of the ground and leave all the rest of it.
I just didn't like the sound of it. That's the only reason I never bought one. I just couldn't get my ear wrapped around the sound of it. That was the only reason. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it was a top machine for a lot of years.
I liked it from the first day. I liked the Tone ID, when I used Explorer, and then when I got the Equinox, it's not as harsh as the. It's got a little bit more nuances and stuff in the. Actually, the Explorer had a lot of nuances in it too.
Yeah.
But the multi-frequency is just was a big deal back then. I could go into ground that the Nautilus would just wouldn't work hardly at all in it. There'd be a musket ball at an inch and it wouldn't pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't all metal, but not indiscriminate. It was crazy, and you could dig it 6 or 7 inches deep with the MindLab. It just would cut through the mineralization. I went to spots where I'd gotten maybe 50 buttons in about 10 times going there. And the first day I go with the MindLab, I get 30-some buttons.
Yeah.
Come back, I ended up going over the same areas. I got like 350 buttons, several more coins. I got 2 cut coins. Took the dais in there. The first time I took the dais in there, I walked this path that I've been walking for probably 5-7 years. Hadn't been back there in a long time because there just wasn't anything there.
Right.
And I'm walking down the path, and I get this weird signal. and it's kind of jumping up and down, but it sounds good. And so I'm making this path that everybody would swing on when they went into this area. And, you know, it was one of the places, it was a natural place you could tell that it was an old path. This place dated back, I got stuff from the 1600s there.
Right.
So I don't know. They said it was 1730 or 1734, but I think people were there earlier than that. There was, across the creek was these real old blast furnaces that they melted pig iron, and the guy that owned the place was named Taylor, Colonel Taylor, I think.
Huh.
And he was the richest guy. He was making $20,000 a year in silver back then, and this was in the early, 1700s. And they had these huge woods, and they would, for every acre of woods they cut down, they would get a ton of pig iron out of it. So they cut woods down for miles and miles and miles, and that whole area was pine trees. There was hardly any other trees. It was just pines and a real rocky, mineralized ground. There was like a lot of mining there, and I would see relic hunters back there, a couple well-known ones, and we'd sit there and talk, and they'd been coming for 20 or 30 years, some of them, and they said, when they first got there was just stuff laying on the ground. It was just everywhere, and then the stuff in the ground, they couldn't even hardly dig it because it was so mineralized with the old machines. And a lot of them just ran in all metal, but then they said there's so many square nails. And one guy brought a GPX up there, and he never came back. After 2 hours, he was just shaking his head.
Yeah.
And he said, I've never been to a spot that had this many nails ever. And he said, I've been in this hobby for a long time.
Yep.
And but I took the dais to there, and I dig this hole, and I dig a nail and a flat button, little tiny one. I was like, damn, that's pretty good. And I thought, man, that's kind of a low signal, it was rating up like 78, and stuff.
Right.
And so I go back over the hole, and I get like a 60, I think, 65. And I said, oh, man, that really sounds good. So I dig, there's a cut real. I think it was a 1721. I was like, oh, my God, all these years, and I'd find this thing. So I went to this place where I'd never found anything. There's this old car that somebody had driven in the woods, this big red car, and if you were lost, you kind of looked to see where that car was. You could see it from like 3 ridges away, and then you knew that the path went up the hill from there back to the car.
Right.
But I never had any problems, but that's what I used to tell these guys, look for that red car, and just make a right when you get to it, But anyway, right behind it was an old road, and it went all along the hill. And I'd been over there with a bunch of machines, and the only thing I'd gotten were real big, like a King George, halfpenny, or big dandy buttons. I think I got a Rouge that. Stuff like that, big things, and big iron things, but nothing small. And I go behind there, at a 20-foot stretch, I get 14 buttons. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But you could just hear the iron, in the ground. It was just like, bing, 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 just, so much iron. It was unbelievable. People used to dig pits, down. That's how I found these King Charles II cufflinks, and this guy, I'd been hunting around this whole area, and I found at the top of the hill, I'd found a half of a 2 reals, and I'd gotten that with the Explorer, the third time I'd gone up there,
right,
and with it, and but found a lot of buttons, but no more other coins in that area. But anyway, I got there one day and I looked, and somebody had been digging out like this, kind of like a cellar hole area, and it was like real bad clay. It was like the ground was so mineralized. It was unbelievable. There was like black streaks in the rocks, like stains almost, and red, like real dark red. And there was like cuts, V-shaped cuts that went up, like right across the top of these hills. And they were mining stuff. And, it was just like a perfect V-shaped cut, for 100 yards or more. And then there would be another one off, at a different angle. And I don't know what they were getting, but it was like shale everywhere, too. The ground was just all shale everywhere. It was just a weird place. There was a mill there, and they dug out the one side of the creek, I think, to unload boats. And but it was it's all been developed, I think, now. On the one side, there used to be a Walgreens or something, and they tore that down. And then there was a hill that it was straight up and down. It was probably, I don't know, 50 yards high. It was the biggest hill you've ever seen. And that thing would kill it. It was Harry just climbing down it to get down there. And but there was stuff there, but it was, I'd taken the Nautilus over there one time and I couldn't find a thing. I went back with him. The first time I went back with the Explorer, I got I think 2 Indian heads and about 10 or 15 buttons. But that whole place has been developed now. I haven't even been back there in probably 8 years or so.
Yeah, Earl's saying on there that you have 2 furnaces near you. One is probably about a half a mile away, and he says you probably don't know where the other one is. I mean, I guess there's 2 of them around. But he also wanted to know, Craig, that if you had any spare lower rods for the Nautilus DMC 11B.
2B.
2B, yeah, 2B.
2B.
Brain damage.
Yeah, I actually traded my Nautiluses about 3 years ago. I had 2 of them. One of them worked and one of them didn't. I traded them for 4 entrenching shovels. So I don't have them anymore.
Oh, you know anybody that does?
Either.
Yeah, does anybody you know what?
You might try Nicky Harris down there in Fredericksburg at the regimental headquarters. I don't know. I haven't really. My friend Mike has, he just got an Equinox 600, but he has a Nautilus. But
another guy too, Bill Pendergrass. He goes by Thunderdome. He hasn't been on here in a little while, but he has a Nautilus 2B also. I don't know, if he'd sell it or not, but he may have extra parts. Bill is always good about that, so I need to call him.
Yeah,
there's a couple of guys I haven't been able to keep track of.
It's a legendary machine. I remember, when I got one, I was like, I was going, oh my God, I was going back over these spots, and it was like, they were like, producing like crazy again, especially with buttons.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen so many, deep buttons coming out, compared to what the other machines were doing. But, man, we used to go into areas and, these guys with whites would show up. And, they'd be so upset, because they'd see us with those Nautiluses. They couldn't find anything hardly.
Yep.
That machine was like a button machine that, anything brass, that thing just, would lock onto it. I could tell when I went over something if it was, brass or copper.
There's always a handful of machines that, I mean, it's like really the E-Track. The E-Track will never die out. I mean, it's a legendary machine too. I mean, when you think about it, even the White's brand, the MXT.
Hey,
you think how many years it's been around, and it still finds you stuff. I mean, it's a good machine. Just I know
a few guys that were with the E-Track, and they went to the Equinox, and they ran it for a while, and they sold them. They disliked the E-Track. It just they're used to the tones and the numbers.
Really, the Sorrow and Garrett, same way. I mean, they have their models that were you know, they were just legendary. I mean, you knew if you saw one of those machines in somebody's hands, you knew they were dangerous if they knew how to use it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Nautilus thing, or you see somebody with a GPX 5000, on a relic site in Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, you start looking real close and watching what they're doing. I mean, obviously, it.
Most of the machines I used in the early days, was Tesoro, and
right, Tesoro, yeah.
In the early '90s, I switched to the Nautilus, and then around 2002 or three, I started. My friend got the Explorer, and then he ended up one of them broke, and he ended up giving it to him, and he bought another one, and then he upgraded to I got that one fixed, and then I started testing. I went out every weekend. I would take one machine one day and the other machine the next day to the same spot and go over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about 6 or 8 months. And I had this great Colonial spot where I dug a bunch of reals and 2 USA entwined buttons, and there was a lot of targets and a lot of nails that went back probably at least 1700,
right.
Maybe even 1695. I can't find any information, but it was just a, super old place. And about a mile away, you could actually almost see it. Well, you could see it in through the woods up on top of this hill that overlooked the Potomac. George Washington's chief of staff, I believe, owned that house, and that house was built in 1700.
Mm-hmm.
But the French and George Washington's army, marched down Route 1 all the way down to Stafford and got on boats to go to Yorktown to fight the last battles against Cornwallis. But that's why all those, there was USA entwined buttons found at, some house sites along that route.
Right.
And I just got lucky. I found 2 at that Wright House. It was called the Wright House. That whole area is, God, it must be 6,000 to 10,000 condos in there now.
Hmm.
But,
yeah, you're watching all our places go bye-bye. So I do the same thing around here. Now the plantation.
Well, that's why I moved out here. There's still land, there's still woods, there's still fields.
There's still stuff. I mean, where you like that plantation property I did for years, and it's gone.
Almost everybody I've seen out here has antiquated machines.
Mm-hmm.
I like this one guy I hunt. I become friends with. He lives right down the street, and he's been a relic hunter for a long time. But he has I think a Garrett Classic, and it was good in its day, but it just doesn't go that deep.
Yeah, it just can't. It just can't find the stuff there because somebody's hit it already, and the stuff is deeper. I mean, if it was just, just the sites that I have, or there were great sites. I pulled hundreds and hundreds of coins and relics and all kinds of crazy stuff out of there, and they just noticed they tore down they cut all the woods out of there, and now they're putting homes in. Like, God,
yeah, it's like
I kept thousands of acres gone.
Just about every relic hunter I meet, the first thing they say is, "What do you use? A Whites or a Garrett?"
Yeah, I'm past those.
I've met maybe 2 guys that said they had mine labs, but when you say mine lab, their eyes get all big like they're rich or something, And I was like, God.
Well, I mean, if I wasn't using a Bliss tool right now, and I wasn't, I didn't have the money for an Equinox or, Deus or whatever, I'd be using my Spectre V3 from White's. I mean, or my MXT. I think, they're still good. You just got to really push them. You got to, to get on these hunted sites. Now, it's not going to bother you on a site that nobody's been on. I mean, it's just like a virgin site. But when you get to these areas that are pounded, yeah, you just need something with that little extra. But there ain't nothing. I go right back to White's. I enjoy the machines. I have nothing bad to say about them, to be honest with you. It's just that, I kind of, for the type of hunting I do, and as deep as the stuff gets, I just need something that I flat out will know that it'll hit it every time. And well, there's not many machines that can do that. I mean, how many machines have you owned, Craig, that can hit a 14-inch penny, 15-inch penny? I mean, there's not very many. On count on one hand.
Yeah.
And it used to be too.
Well,
I remember reading some Dick Strout books that
I think
he
if
always.
you know, the Equinox with a 15-inch coin will do that.
Yeah.
14,
Oh yeah.
15
The new
inches on a
ones.
penny.
Yeah.
But,
On one hand, Deus won't do it. I don't think. I mean, Deus had a hard time
Nah.
with a 8-inch dime, 9-inch dime, something like that. Unless these
Yeah.
new programs are better, and that's with this 8-inch coil. So yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
people are.
there's so many factors.
I've had a bunch of people ask me, XP Deus versus the Equinox, and I said, well, there's a couple things. One is the price. The Equinox is cheaper. It's not quite as light, but it's very light, so that's not a real big factor. You're talking 2.9 pounds versus 2.1 pounds.
Right.
But they're basically so light. It's so easy to swing. I think the big difference is the Deus has got the older chips. It's 7 or 8 year old machine now, and they the Equinox has got the faster chips. Look how fast everything's changing. It's like speed and
Right.
and memory is. Remember how like 64 gigs was a lot, and
Yeah.
now your phone comes with my last one. My X came, iPhone X came with 256.
Right.
But I think or was it 526? I don't know. It was something like that. But they're coming out with they're
just like external hard drives. I mean, I get a 4 terabyte for God's sake for $100, and 5 years ago that was like unheard of. Just for storage. So yeah, I mean,
they're going to make it. They're going to make it so you can stick thumb drives now into an iPad.
Yeah.
With the new updates in September, I think. That's pretty wild.
And that's another thing too. I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you saw somebody with whatever, we'll say 15 years ago, anyways, a Nautilus or an E-Track or whatever, top of the line, you were like, you got to really keep an eye on them. Nowadays, it's not really like that, Craig, because there's, well, not everybody, but there's quite a few of them out there that they go out and buy a, with this, say GPX. Doesn't mean they know how to use it, because a lot of it is the user now. The machine will do what it does, but I mean, to get the most out of the machine or whatever, I mean, if you don't know how to use a machine or don't try to learn how to use a machine, then you might as well own a $10 machine, not a $2,000 or $3,000 machine. It just where I'm getting at is, Craig's, like in the early 2000s, if you had a White's or an E-Track or MXT, whatever, it doesn't matter. It had the presets in there that were good enough that you could swing that detector as long as you swung it right. You were going to find stuff. Now, that easy stuff is not there so much anymore. Where you have to work for this stuff now. So when the Equinox comes out and the new Deus and all this, they're workhorses. They have to be able to find stuff in these hunted out spots. I mean, that's why I use a bliss tool, for God's sake, because I don't have any other machine that can absolutely pound stuff at 10, 12 inches down.
I've been complaining about the weight of machines for several years.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's ridiculous that any machine's like 5 or 6 pounds, or it's like I saw that ATX pulse machine that Garrett has.
Was
that
it
thing's
8
like
pounds?
I think 8 pounds.
Yeah, that's like from 1970s weight right there. God. And I actually had a guy at a hunt.
It's ridiculously deep. I mean, I was watching Kurt from the Hoover Boys, and he was taking these tiny gold rings down, deep, in the ground. And he got I think 3 of the nickel 3-cent pieces, which I've never dug one. I don't think I've ever seen one dug over the years, myself. You just don't see those. They're in the ground somewhere, but you just don't dig those signals because it's below nickel.
Right. I got on here. Earl saying, the MXT rocks. I truly love that machine. I do too. I mean, and he says he has the 10x12 SEF and the butterfly coil, or the 6x10 double D Eclipse coil. Yeah, I mean, those aftermarket coils were fantastic on the MXT and the Spectra V3. I'm sure the DFX was right in there somewhere. DFX, I don't know, it had a little bit more bells and whistles, but I think really the MXT is, where it was at for me. And then I went into
It's the same
Spectra.
thing with the AT Pro. You put one of those big nail coils on there,
Yep.
and you got a machine.
Yeah,
you
that
know?
damn thing will
You're
hit on
gonna
an
find-
11-inch dime. You
I know
can't beat
guys
that.
He's obsessed with the getting the deepest silver coins and
Right.
in these old spots, and he's gone through E-Track, CTX. He's already gotten rid of his Equinox.
Mm-hmm.
He just put a Amphibio on the market, and so it was funny. I won't tell the guy's name. We know who it is. I know who it is, but anyway, he started getting questions. He has his own Facebook page about metal detecting.
Mm-hmm.
But people were asking him, wow, how come you have this, Amphibio on? And he said, it just doesn't, it just won't work in the way I want it to in the environment I'm in.
Right.
And he's
That
in
makes
a
sense.
metropolitan area that is like this huge city, and there's so much EMI. He said it's unusable.
Right.
Basically, and he wants to, he said, if you didn't have any EMI, it probably would hit coins at 14 inches, but he said, I'm not even getting them at 5 and 6, because of the EMI. And so it's worthless. And he said, so people were saying, well, are you giving up the hobby? And he goes, no, I ordered a new AT Pro with a nail coil, the big nail coil. And he said that was the best setup I've had. And I've gone through 4 machines since, and I'm going back to what works.
Yep, the aftermarket coils make your machines like different machines. They do.
Yeah, it was like this tough site that we were working about 3 or 4 years ago down at Stafford, and I got the Confederate staff officer button in this old roadway, and there was no signals until I got this thing, and there wasn't any after it for about 50 yards, and then I got a coin button from the early 1800s, I think. That was about it for the whole day. But in the middle of the woods, kind of off to the left of that area, was it was like a terraced hill, and the Union soldiers had all been along that hill. There had been all kinds of OVM plates, which is Ohio Volunteer Corps plates found there, a lot of box plates. And I think maybe 1 or 2 breastplates. They're real rare. That's one of the better breastplates to find if you do. But in other words, this place has been hammered for 30 years. People had just gone over it and over it. And there's legends of metal detecting that have been over it. And people were saying, there's nothing there. It's not even worth going, And I was finding, bullets that most of the bullets were 12 to 20 inches deep. That was my record, I think. And it was the only reason I dug that signal was I dug one about 16 inches kind of next to it. And I got this little tiny whisper. And I thought, I kicked a whole bunch of leaves away and everything. And then I got the signal and went ahead and dug it. And it was 3-ringer, but it was tough. I mean, it wasn't a lot of buttons either. It was just mostly bullets. And but anyway, there was this guy, and he had an AT Pro, and he had the stock coil on, and he had his kids with him. And it got so, they all had shovels, and they would just put the machine down when it got there and just dig a big pit down a foot deep, and then go, they'd dig it about 10 feet in diameter, and then they would just go in there with the machine and hope and they were finding maybe 1 bullet. And so he was telling me, he came up and he said, and I had this one day where I dug 3 buttons and a couple knapsack hooks and 6 or 7 bullets. It was one of the better days I had. Well, it was one of the earlier days, I guess we were there. And but anyway, he goes, oh my God, you dug all that today? And I said, yeah, just 2 hours, But I said, I've been up here before and only found 2 bullets and a button, for 3 or 4 hours. You know, it just depends on where you go on here. I said, you know, it kind of rained a lot recently, and he goes, man, we're digging these pits, you know, and my kids are getting kind of bored, you know. He goes, whenever we dig a bullet, then they get all excited, you know. But he said, man, you know, you think I should get another machine, you know? And he said, I really can't afford one. And I said, the best thing to do, I said, get one of those big nail coils. Yep. I said, they make these 15-inch coils. It's heavy and everything, but man, I said, it'll make it into a new machine, you know?
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
said, so the next time we were up there, or maybe 2 weeks later, he'd gotten one. And he comes running up the hill when he saw me. He goes, we just dug a bullet a foot deep. Deepest bullet I ever dug. He goes, you're right. Because he had this big smile, and both the kids were all going, man, that's wow. We're going back down there. Let's see if we can get more.
Yep. I love giving people advice, and it's like they want to believe you, but they don't, because they hear so much stuff. You know, but when they go through it and they do what you tell them to do and it works, that's the best feeling in the world, knowing they finally got you know, they found something. They finally got a good setup or whatever that will work for them. Craig and I have been doing this for many, many years, and you know, God, between us, we own a billion machines. It seems like at one time or another. You know, they all find you something. It's just the performance and it's just how they work and you know, the depths you can get and everything else. I mean, Dick Strout, he wrote a lot of books for whites or about whites machines and stuff. I'm sure about other stuff too, but he always said, you know, you with a metal detector, and God, those books were older that I was reading. But he would say like $100 for every inch deep that the detector would get would be a fair price for most. Well, you think about it, a lot of these machines now are way over that. But I mean, we're hitting pennies at 14, 15, 16 inches down. Well, that's a $1,600 machine. You know, that's the way I've always. Craig, I'm sure you think about it about the same way. But when you start getting into that machine, some of those machines are $9,000, $10,000, $11,000, $12,000. Well, you know what? I better be able to dig a penny at 3 foot. You know what I mean?
think,
not that I want to.
I paid over $1,500 a Deus. You know, that was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that.
I had about $1,800 or $1,900 wrapped up in that Spectre V3 for whites, but after all the coils.
You know, it's been a good machine. I found a lot of stuff with it. You know, I can't complain. But it's like I was saying. You know, the Equinox and the Mine Lab and Deus are definitely competitors. You know, they're definitely on the top of the heap.
Oh yeah.
And the Equinox was the answer to the Deus, and it's a lighter machine. Got the nice, screen and everything. Mm-hmm. But the thing was, it's a price point. It's worth a lot more than it is. I mean, if you compare it to the functions and some of the other machines, it's I bought, I paid $900 from a dealer up in Boonesboro, Maryland. But he was, he had to make a little bit of money.
Right.
And I didn't mind. I wanted to pay cash, and and it was fun talking to the guy because he'd been metal detecting for about 50 years. But I was telling him, I said, there's no he was saying something, and I said, well, I have a Deus, and he goes, oh yeah, I've seen those, and I said, especially as you get older, you don't want a heavy machine. I said, but
right.
Once you swing one of these lighter machines, and then you try to go back to these other machines, it's funny. It feels even heavier than you didn't even realize it was that heavy before.
Yeah.
I used the Nautilus, and that thing was like real heavy.
God, it had a freaking 4 or 5 or 6 damn 9-volt batteries on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Just the batteries alone weighed a pound.
Plus, had a toaster as a control box on top of it.
And a lead plate for a coil. Jesus.
But that thing was like a tank, man. You couldn't hurt that thing. God, you couldn't break the shaft. I mean, there's no way you could break the shaft. It's,
heavy
it was like heavy duty military grade. He made that thing. I talked to Jerry several times on the phone. He was a real character, and he had these psychic dreams that told him how to fix problems on the machine. Mm-hmm. And one of the dreams was doing the dual on the 2B was to use the two null points to get that coil just, so it was quiet, stabilized. And because he was trying to pump so much power through it, he figured out a way to get more power through it. But then they came out with another one, I think it was the 2BA.
Right.
And that was an automatic ground balance, I believe. And I never got one, and I don't know if you even can get them anymore. Probably, they're not selling them, but you might be able to get one off eBay or something. But there was I talked to some of the legends of metal detecting, and these guys were in their 60s at the time, and they'd been hunting 30 years and stuff, and they gone to this 2BA, and they didn't like it. They said, no, this doesn't sound the same. I can't hear the nuances and stuff. It has power, but it just they didn't like it at all. But there was guys that were newer to the hobby, or hadn't really used the knowledge before. They liked it.
Well, yeah, because they just
as far as
what they're used to.
Yeah. So it's not always more power. Sometimes you can't use it. That was a funny thing. People would say, "Oh man, you can crank this gain way up," and I said, "Yeah, but you go that high in a lot of ground, you can't use it."
Right.
Well, what do you mean? And I go, "It's so noisy." It's funny, as you said, a lot of times, if it's slightly mineralized, you bury something in the ground and you got that thing cranked up like that, you're not going to hear it. Mm-mm. It's just too much power going into that mineralized ground, and it just, it kind of nulls the machine out and stuff. But some people, you can't talk to them. It's like, they know it all, and I've never known it all. I always get, I always have asked, guys, for help, and any new tricks, or I'm always looking for something new. I don't think you can. It's like I've had this Equinox for a while, and I'm still learning it. But I've got it down, pretty good now, and I'm pretty impressed with it. But it's just it was kind of fun using the new machine and learning the new technology and stuff on it. And it's a wave of the future. I can see them coming out with a, maybe, instead of a CTX 3030, maybe a 5050.
The CTX 5050. That's a good one.
Somebody said, they're going to come out with an Equinox 1000 instead of 800.
You never know. We dealt with that. When they come out with the V7, when are they coming up with it? Oh my God.
Well, they just came out with. Well, the funny thing was they came out with this Vanquish, and you hear this little beep, and it was like a black screen with Vanish on it. A Vanquish. Vanquish, yeah. And you hear this beep for about 10 seconds, and then the screen goes off. It's only a 10-second video. So then, people were commenting underneath, and I was like, man, is that all there is? And that's what everybody else is saying. Come on, man, what's going on? I want to, that's a bunch of bull. You just hear a beep and say there's a put a name. Yeah. So about a week later, another one comes out, and they kind of do this little video, but they show like the bottom edge of the control box or where it hooks to the stem or something, and it was like two little pictures, but it was like a real close-up so you couldn't see anything hardly. Just see these edges.
That's marketing for you guys. Marketing.
Well, anyway, people were. Well, then they sent out this thing that they had a Facebook page, and so you had to it was a closed page, and you have to,
remember,
be approved or
yeah.
Asked for approval, and so I got on there, and so people were going, man, what's going on? How much is this machine? What are the features? There's nothing. Well, some guy went in on there. Somehow he got the specs on this machine somehow, and printed it all out, and it was like 3-frequency machine,
right?
And it looked like it was maybe the multi-Q or whatever, but other than that, you couldn't really tell anything. So then it comes out, I don't know if they leaked a chart or some new chart came out, and it showed all the machines in a line, and just below the Equinox, there's a slot for this new Vanquish. So it's below the Equinox, and more like a Xterra range detector. Right. So I was going, nobody wants this low end machine. It's not low end. It's probably
right. Well, it's like a Quest 40. You got Quest Pro, and Quest 40 was pretty good, but it's not an Equinox. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, once you have the 800 Equinox or 600, you're not going to want to Vanquish. And that's what everybody said on. Oh man, everybody was disappointed pretty much. There was a couple people saying, well, this is a much more affordable machine with all these features, and I'm like, yeah, but it's it's not going to. They're not going to make it go as deep or deeper than the Equinox. So if you already have an Equinox, you're not going to buy down to Vanquish. That's the thing. But they're probably
developing metal detectors that are affordable for certain price ranges, which I get.
Yeah.
I mean, Craig and I.
That's how they're killing Deus. And that Deus comes out with his ORX because they had to have a lower price machine to counter the Equinox. And the Equinox was definitely, $900 machine versus $1,500.
Right.
It was. I said it before, months, like 6 months or so ago. That price point is going to kill. It's a killer price point.
Yep.
And that's what Fine Lab's new strategy is.
Right.
They're going to.
It's just marketing. That's what I was saying. It's all marketing.
You. They're going to bring the price down, and I don't know how they're going to sell. Well, they got people that like the E-Track, but that's still a what $1,500-$1,700 machine.
I saw one used $1,800. I don't even know how much they were to begin with.
I don't know.
And I know that the CTX is still in the $2,400 range. It's a good machine. I'm not going to sit there and beat it at all. I mean, a lot of guys use it. A lot of guys have good luck with it. A lot
of guys are selling them.
Yeah.
A lot of guys they bought the Equinox. As soon as they started using the Equinox, they've sold the CTX.
Yeah. But
it's pretty. That's how good the Equinox is. I've gone over my yard with it, and it's done. I found stuff that the Bliss tool missed. But then I went back over with other settings with the Bliss tool the other day and found, last couple of weeks, found more stuff that I missed, that the Equinox couldn't hear. So
that's why you have it in your arsenal. You got to have it in your arsenal. Buddy, if we're going to wrap up the show for tonight, I got an early morning. Got to go to the doctors again. Woo woo. But yeah, I'm probably going to wrap it up for tonight and everything. And I posted up a photo of a couple of things. I mostly found shotgun shells and bullets, a piece of chain from a wagon. I don't know. I think I talked about it the last show, but I'm going to hit that property again on Saturday morning with a whole new attitude on the whole different side of it, and see what I come up with, Greg. And we'll kind of go from there. But that's probably just end the show up for tonight and everything, and hit it again fresh on Saturday night. Craig and I have been kind of bouncing around the idea of doing some different stuff on Spreaker, different times and stuff like that. So we're in the process. Actually, it's on me right now because me and Craig were already supposed to start doing this, but I kind of been messing with this microphone so much, trying to make sure I had my end all set up and everything. So now that I got it, hopefully better, we'll hit her on the replay, I guess, Craig, and see how it goes. But once we do that, now that we got that kind of figured out, hopefully we can try to do these other little projects we were talking about doing, and hopefully you guys like it. I guess with that, I'm going to leave that cliffhanger. I'm being like Mind Lab now. But we're on every Thursday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can get to us on Skype too, guys. So if you live outside the country or whatever, you always can get on your desktop or whatever and call us through the contact on Skype. And listen to all our archive shows too. You can go to hardcoremetaltechting.com and it'll take you right to the Spreaker page and all the archive shows and all that stuff too. So, we're trying to develop different ways. With the Facebook page has been doing good. We post up a lot of stuff there. Craig does. A lot of other people do too. So be sure to check out the Facebook page also. And we'll talk to you on Saturday night. And, if you can, get out there, keep digging, and God bless.